This is Thanunx News, bringing you the latest headlines from around the world. The world mourns the passing of Pope Francis at the age of 88, ending his 12-year papacy. The Walmart, Texas mass shooter avoids the death penalty by pleading guilty to multiple charges. President Donald Trump's approval rating hits a new low since returning to the White House. The White House denies reports of searching for a new defense secretary following a classified info leak. El Salvador offers a controversial prisoner swap with Venezuela, Caracas firmly rejects. President Trump meets with top U.S. retailers amid growing concern over aggressive tariffs. And in Eastern Europe, Vladimir Putin proposes peace talks, while Ukraine signals openness to ceasefire discussions. Stay with us for full details on these developing stories. Pope Francis passes away at 88. On April 21, the Vatican announced that Pope Francis has passed away at the age of 88, marking the end of his 12-year leadership of the Catholic Church. He died at 7:35 a.m. local time at his residence in the Santa Marta guesthouse within the Vatican. The cause of death was confirmed as a stroke that led to a coma and irreversible heart failure. Pope Francis had a history of respiratory illness, high blood pressure, and type 2 diabetes. He had recently spent nearly 40 days in the hospital due to severe pneumonia. Dr. Andrea Arcangeli, director of the Vatican Health and Hygiene Department, officially confirmed the death, which was recorded using electrocardiographic thanatography. In his spiritual will, written in 2022, the Pope expressed his wish to be buried at the Basilica of St. Mary Major in Rome, in a simple grave marked only with the Latin name, Franciscus. His body will lie in state at St. Peter's Basilica, where the faithful can pay their respects. Prayer services and memorial masses will be held in Catholic churches worldwide. Texas Walmart shooter sentenced to life in prison, avoids death penalty. Patrick Crusius, the gunman behind the deadly 2019 mass shooting at a Walmart in El Paso, Texas, has pleaded guilty to murder and was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The attack claimed the lives of 23 people and injured 22 others, most of whom were of Latino descent. During the April 21 hearing, Judge Sam Medrano sentenced Crusius to 23 life sentences for the victims killed, along with 22 additional life terms for aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. Crusius had previously pleaded guilty to 90 federal charges, including hate crimes and weapons offenses, and received 90 consecutive life sentences. Prosecutors said Crusius admitted targeting Hispanic individuals during the attack. Following the sentencing, several victims and family members delivered emotional impact statements in court, which are expected to continue through Wednesday. Trump's approval rating drops to lowest level since return to White House. Washington, April 21. Public approval of President Donald Trump has fallen to its lowest point since he returned to the White House, according to a Reuters Ipsos poll concluded on Monday. The 6-day poll showed that about 42% of Americans approve of Trump's performance, down from 43% in a similar poll 3 weeks earlier, and from 47% right after his inauguration on January 20. The decline reflects growing public concern over Trump's efforts to expand his presidential powers. White House denies Defense Secretary replacement rumors after info leak. April 21, Reuters, the White House on Monday denied reports that it is seeking a replacement for Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, following allegations that he shared sensitive information about a U.S. strike on Iran-linked Houthi forces in Yemen via the messaging app Signal. White House spokesperson Caroline Leavitt stated that the NPR report on the search for a new secretary was false. On the same day, President Donald Trump publicly voiced his support for Hegseth, despite claims that he had shared strike details in a private messaging group with his wife, brother, and personal lawyer. This marks the second time Hegseth has been accused of using an unclassified messaging platform to share highly sensitive security information. The Pentagon is currently facing internal upheaval, with several senior officials dismissed last week amid an ongoing leak investigation. El Salvador proposes prisoner swap with Venezuela, Caracas rejects offer. Caracas, April 21, Reuters, El Salvador's President Nayib Bukele proposed on Sunday to send back 252 Venezuelans detained in his country after being deported from the U.S., in exchange for the release of detainees held by Venezuela. The proposal was promptly rejected by the Venezuelan government. Relatives and lawyers of the Venezuelans held in El Salvador claim they are not gang members and were denied fair trials. Meanwhile, the U.S. Supreme Court recently halted the Trump administration's attempt to deport a similar group. Notable individuals mentioned by Buchel include Rafael Tudez, 45, son-in-law of opposition figure Edmundo González, detained in Caracas on January 7 while driving his children to school. Roland Carano, 59, a journalist and opposition party member, detained in August 2024, previously held for 3 years on terrorism funding charges. Rocio San Miguel, 58, a lawyer and human rights activist, arrested at the Caracas airport in February 2024 on espionage charges. Magali Maida, Pedro Arachertu, Claudia Massaro, Humberto Villalobos, and Omar González, members of the 2024 presidential campaign team for opposition leader Maria Corina Machado. They have sought refuge at Argentina's diplomatic residence in Caracas to avoid arrest warrants linked to alleged conspiracy charges, which they deny. Trump meets with major retailers amid tariff concerns. Washington, April 21, Reuters, U.S. President Donald Trump met with top retailers including Walmart, Target, Home Depot, and Lowe's on Monday to discuss sweeping tariffs, including a 145% duty on Chinese imports, that could raise prices on everyday goods. These retailers rely heavily on imported products, many from China, and analysts warn that the tariffs could squeeze profit margins and burden U.S. consumers amid persistent inflation. Trump's unpredictable trade policies have rattled markets for weeks. He recently lashed out at Fed Chair Jerome Powell, who warned of economic risks from both slowing growth and high inflation. U.S. markets slumped on Monday. Target shares have plunged 32% in 2025, making it the worst hit, while Walmart shares rose less than 2%. Putin proposes talks, Ukraine open to ceasefire discussion. Moscow, Kyiv, April 21. Russian President Vladimir Putin has proposed direct talks with Ukraine for the first time since the early days of the war. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said Kyiv is open to dialogue, especially on stopping attacks on civilian targets. Though Zelensky did not directly respond to Putin's offer, he emphasized Ukraine's readiness for any dialogue to end civilian strikes. Both sides indicated willingness to extend the 30-hour Easter ceasefire declared by Moscow, though each accused the other of violations. Zelensky added that Ukraine would join talks with the US and European countries in London on Wednesday, following last week's meeting in Paris to explore paths to end the more than 3-year conflict. Putin stated that Russia remains open to any peace initiative and expects Kyiv to feel the same way. Watching Phalanx News. If you find this update valuable, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share our channel. Stay informed with us, where the world meets your screen.